from the religious community. For example, religious employers or say, churches and such, or that have that have a scriptural basis for their stand about hiring LGBTQ um, identifying people. So I don't know very much about it, but I do know that's coming before our federal government. So
Yeah, yeah.
That means it'd be a federal offense to deny somebody access to something like a church bathroom, depending on their gender.
well, I think that's what it
I think
kind of
that's part
trickles
of it.
down to.
Yeah,
Has to do with employment um, protection.
yeah. But it does raise all kinds of questions, um, and and things to think through and think about. Um, the Angel raised a good point about access to bathrooms anywhere. Um, uh, when we think about, on the one hand, there is that freedom. Uh, uh, on the other hand, there is the reality that we know that often predators um, um, scope out bathrooms, and bathrooms in places like churches and schools, to identify potential victims. So it's not like it's a clean black white right wrong. There are a lot of things to be considered, um, and um, you wouldn't necessarily think about all of this with regard to like career counseling, but they are points that they are things that come up as we're working with different populations of people. The you can opt out on a lot of applications anymore of saying whether you're male or female, or whether you're um, mhm, oh, your ethnic origins or your ethnic backgrounds. You can say, I'd rather not say, on a lot of questionnaires that are available anymore. I see that all the time on medical questionnaires, that they'll ask questions and then there'll be an option of I'd rather not say. Um, so if that option is available, then it would seem like that gives a little more flexibility. But it's not things like just LGBTQ. It's other uh, uh, potential invasions of privacy as well. Um, does an employer should an employer have the right to ask about your mental health, and how much of your mental health history should they have access to? Um, suppose you have major depressive disorder, but you've got it under control. You're taking medication. You're seeing a therapist. You're managing life well. And yet, if a job application requires that you put um, mental health, uh, have you ever been treated for mental health issues? If so, what? Uh, where's that? Where is that line between um, privacy, personal privacy, and public responsibility to someone like an employer? And my concern is, as we're talking about these online pieces, Anthony, you can probably speak to this because this is what you do. um, um, as far as working with things online, if um, applications are only being submitted or only being accepted online, and employers are having the opportunity to discard or disregard applications because of certain criteria, again, that just smacks to me of a problem, of an issue.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it's different. It's different in New York. a bit for, well, the internet. I've grown to dislike the internet actually, because that's just pretty much the employer's way of just kind of, um, I don't know. It's like they don't really get to know you. They're just looking for identifiers.
Yeah.
But that does, and especially in New York, that doesn't work. There's like such a high turnover, especially for retail,
Hmm.
that they'll just hire a bunch of people, and they know they're probably going to lose like 9 out of the 10 people that they hired.
Yeah.
So it's like just kind of like, it's like shooting fish in a pond, basically. So, and for the LGBTQ piece, it's also a bit different, and for the ex-offenders too. For the ex-offenders, they passed a new law that said you can't ask them. You're not allowed to ask them when they're filling out the applications. You can't ask them about that, but when you do a background check after they fill out the application,
Then you find it out. Yeah.
right? Even if they're hired, you can still fire them actually
Yeah.
after they've gone through the process. And for the
Mhm.
LGBTQ guys, they it's actually it's interesting. It almost see because I guess New York is considered progressive,
Mhm.
so for the LGBTQ community, it's interesting in that that actually kind of gives you the edge to get the job over other people, interestingly enough. So, I guess some people might think it shouldn't matter either way. Some people think it shouldn't. But in New York, yeah, it gives you the edge. So actually, in a lot of cases, interestingly enough, like when they put that down, they get the job quicker than if they hadn't put it down.
Mhm.
So it actually, on our end, it helps. So it's an interesting kind of mix.
Yeah. Okay. That um, and that's one of the reasons that we are encouraging you guys to find out what your state says about these different areas, because it does differ from state to state. Um, Let me throw out another question for you, or thing for us to talk about. What if an employer says up front that that they don't hire anyone who has a felony charge? What if that's a part of their disclosure information? Or what if they are a church that um, uh, has their policy, their values, as a part of how they introduce any job opportunities? Is that Do you think that's legitimate? Should an employer be able to set some standards? That's just two that I immediately think of. But should an employer be able to set some standards about who they hire?
That's kind of like it. Oh, go ahead, Lydia.
Oh, okay. Um, I I think yes, partly because I think of it as the employer being able to express their identity.
Mm, okay.
Um, I don't. I'm just thinking for just take a church. Somebody who wasn't a believer wouldn't even enjoy working there. It would be a stressful working environment for them. So it's only fair for the employer to be able to express what kind of environment, what kind of topics happen in that situation so that the employee can take a job there.
Hmm. And those, things like that are more controversial. Anthony, did you have something
Mm.
to kick in here with?
Oh yeah, just thank you, Professor. Yeah, just I was just wondering, yeah, it's an interesting thing, especially when you're like looking for employment for people who are incarcerated. I was looking, one individual had shot someone in front of where I worked actually, and
Mm,
so I had to ask him. Well, I didn't think that was going to be the case, but he told me he was very upfront about it. 20 years prior to when I was helping him find the employment. Um, so I mean, it's a really hard call because, you know, it's like a double-edged sword, because what happens is people in public housing, especially in New York City, what winds up happening is they're brought up in a culture where what other people consider crime is just kind of a way of life. And what I mean by that is it's like you have to do certain things where you live sometimes to survive, like
Yeah.
selling drugs, or like carrying a gun, because other people carrying a gun, and it becomes like an arms race to to protect yourself, and
Hmm.
so on and so forth. So the catch is that, so like, while people are being sent to prison for all these other things, um, technically it's, I don't know what happened with the client that I was working with, why he had to do what he had to do, but I know that, like, for a lot of people who sell drugs and things like that, they're denied jobs. And then what winds up happening is, once they're denied the jobs, they go back to selling drugs again, and then they get arrested again, and then they go back looking for jobs when they come out, and then they get arrested again because they
Becomes
had
a
to sell drugs.
cycle. Yeah.
Right. So it's a real problem. And so for us, especially in New York City, it's difficult. You can find jobs like kind of under the table. That's very much still going on in New
Hmm.
York City. That's like, we're probably one of our biggest things,
Hmm.
under the table jobs. So you could find that, but it's like kind of a very gray area, in my mind at least, because it's like, even in New York City, some churches hire ex-convicts on purpose,
Hmm.
because they know that they need like a job. And typically, a lot of the times, it's like, an African American church, and they hire people from, like, like public housing and things like that, because they, like you said, they understand like that cyclical piece to it. They're careful, of course,
Hmm.
but a lot of the times they actually hire them, because they know that they need a job and they need money, and so they give them a chance. So it
Yeah.
depends. Not all churches, but it's a very kind of different setup. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, Indianapolis is no place near as big as New York City. But we have a couple of organizations here that bring ex-convicts into like a year program that they live on site, and they're doing some job training and that kind of thing, and being trained to, and they've started a couple of businesses of their own. Like there's one company that they started that makes wood furniture, and they're doing really well at the craftsmanship is excellent. They sell well, and so we've seen some of that here. Um, other other thoughts that you guys have?
I got some thoughts.
All right, let's hear them, Angel.
So my thoughts are coming from the philosophy background. I want a hair split, and you have to hair split in this topic to a certain extent,
You
because
do.
it gets down to things like, okay, employers are always discriminating in the general sense. They have to discriminate between things like someone's skill set. So they have to make a discriminatory judgment, like what is the person with the skill set. So it's like, it depends on basically what we're talking about, what kinds of categories are okay for discriminating, because employers are already always making judgment calls
Mm-hmm.
on who is the best person for a job.
Yes, good point.
So when I was living in Hawaii, I was working at a Chinese restaurant, and I wanted to find another restaurant to work at. So I went to like Chinatown type of place, 100% Chinese staff, and I tried to get hired there. I was like, this would be so fun to work here, right? And they were like, yeah, no, like
Yeah,
you can't read Chinese. The lady like pulled out a menu, and she's like, can you read this?
can you
It's
read
like
it?
all, and I was
Yeah,
like, oh man, I can recognize like a character. She's like,
yeah,
yeah, no, you can't work here. So, and I was like, okay, I respect their right to turn me away, because I'm not going to make sense for their clientele, right?
right.
But so I kind of feel like the heavy-handed federal government, or like the heavy-handed government that's like coming down and saying, you're not allowed to judgment calls, we're going to decide for you what's a good judgment call. I feel like that leaves the discretion of the situation up to an outside set of categories that might not apply. It's like,
Yeah,
I don't really like that, because I feel like it's not nuanced enough.
yeah. Great point. Great point. Um, I I applaud you and I agree. You know, I was thinking a while ago that, you know, the things like the ex-cons, the LGBTQ, those are the more controversial issues that we hear a lot more of. But exactly what you just said, Angel, of you know, a Chinese organization, a Chinese restaurant, having the discretion to be able to say, yeah, we expect that you would be able to read Chinese and converse with our customers. I was thinking Hispanic as well. That you know, to be able to um, um, the exact same thing. We have buku um, uh, Mexican restaurants here, but a good percentage of them are run by Hispanic, either families or groups. And when you go in, the menu is in Spanish, and the waiters, the servers are conversing in Spanish, and so it would be a similar situation to what you're describing. Um, uh, that for me to go in and say, you know, I would like to work here, uh, uh, you know, my Spanish is way too rusty, even to I can read the menu, but in terms of serving people well in the restaurant, there'd be no way that I could do that. Um, and maybe no way that the people who uh, visit those restaurants, those particular restaurants, would be comfortable with a Caucasian um, as a server. So now, why do you think I initiated this kind of discussion? If we're, excuse me, if we're talking career counseling, why would it be important for us to think about these kinds of things, not just about what somebody's strengths are or what their interests are, but why would it be important for us to think about some of these things, do you think?
I think it's important to understand the hurdles that our clients are going to face when they actually go into the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
So for us to be aware of them, and like you said, to be aware of the laws in our state, for example, in California, a lot of things already fall under discrimination for employment. So it's important to know that, and you can guide your clients and help them understand, you know, what it is that employers are looking for, what they can and cannot discriminate against, and just be ready to prepare them to meet
Mm-hmm.
what they're going to be encountering out in the workforce world.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I would just add to that too. It also heightens our awareness of where advocacy needs to fall in.
Yes.
So there there's a lot of room for advocacy, and I think
Mm.
that's something that we need to keep a mind on.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You know, because one of the roles that we can serve is to be advocates for, like Angel, like you say, for that philosophical hair splitting kind of thing. We can be advocates for a broader um, um, a broader awareness and Vanessa, like you say, an understanding um, of how things impact um, people who are coming to us for help. You know, often people think about career counseling as well. I'll go in and I'll talk to them and we'll figure out what kind of job I should have, and then I'll go on my job search and uh, uh, you know, and my goodness, it's nice when that happens. Um, but a lot of times there are all of these other pieces that we also have to factor in. And a lot of times, we're the ones, as counselors, we're the ones who will think about those things and help to factor those things in. Um, so we want people to come to us and ask those questions. It's important that we know where to search for some of the answers. So, other thoughts about that?
I don't know if this is going off the trail, but I always think about ageism. And a lot of the just like friends who have their parents weren't able to get a job because they were too old, so they had to retire early.
Yeah.
I have a friend that's close to my age, and they're offering packages to people who are older, over a certain age, so the retirement would go even younger than it's already is now. So to me, if you're already trying to get rid of the older employees, you're not going to hire older, you're going to hire younger, even though they say you don't discriminate. So I don't know, how would you possibly manage something like that? And even the focus group that we have here, which one of our largest in Texas, that's a big thing. And I once mentioned how my brother-in-law hired a lot of people from Brazil, and it made them angry. That's discrimination. They're only hiring Brazilians, you know, so it was just amazing, the reaction that everybody has. I don't know. What would you do with a client that you know they're not hiring because of their age? And it's pretty hard to hide it on your resume. I mean, you just give them your history, you know.
So what do we do with clients like that? You know, that age group, baby boomers. We're still the largest group of people to be dealt with. What do you do with someone who has been offered early retirement and in a way that it's pretty obvious that they better take the early retirement, you know? And for a lot of employers, that's a financial choice. They can hire a younger person right out of college, or with a couple of years experience. They can hire them for much less than they can the salary that they're usually paying an older person who's been in a field or in a company for a longer period of time. And so for a lot of companies, it's a financial strategy. But what do we do? A sidebar. Were any of you in the breakout session for kickoff, where I think it was Dr. Christmas Thomas who said that this is one of the occupations where we can work until we're 80 or 90. So in terms of future job security, it's pretty good for us. As long as our mental faculties stay intact and our health stays pretty good, we can keep doing what we're doing for a long time. And age and life experience becomes an asset for us rather than a liability. But what about those people?
I do think that's true, and I feel it's somewhat unique to the counseling profession, which is great. But broadly speaking, in corporate America, a lot of the baby boomers, seasoned baby boomers who've been in their roles for many years and are making probably 3 times what somebody their junior would make. I almost feel there comes a point where there could be some dissatisfaction if one is doing the same thing and they just almost can do the role in their sleep, to kind of step aside and make way for, a younger generation to come and create opportunity. So, I have mixed feelings about it. Like, I get it. We all get older, but there's something to be said for, okay, I've been successful in a role. It's time to kind of step aside and let those that are younger come in and have advancement opportunity, because otherwise what happens in some companies, if they aren't offering these, packages to balloon people out, you have the stagnation, and younger people, in their 30s and 40s, they're just stuck and they can't advance, which is not a good thing, right?
Excellent point. Excellent point.
I'll just add to that conversation a little bit.
Okay.
I'm up in the Seattle area, and our biggest employer outside the state of Washington is Boeing. And they've over the course of many years and several offerings for early retirement, what they found themselves in here in the last 2 to 3 years is a brain drain. So what they lost were the older or the more seasoned engineers who had continuity in their profession, and they retired. And that is actually one of the contributing factors to the problems that they've had with the 767, that they, had the terrible crashes and they took it off the production line. It's back in production, but that's one of the things that was an issue, is that brain drain, that there weren't the seasoned understanding of the older workers. So yeah, it's a conundrum.
Yeah. Well, and a huge need and upsurge in career counseling has been in helping people to repurpose and second careers, or in some cases even third or fourth careers. And so think about how many people in this program who have had a successful work lives and have now come into to training in this field, and are making that transition. So that's one of the things, Jill, that we do, is we help people to transition and advocate that that what you may do is you may train and go into a totally different field. Now, what people a lot of times have trouble dealing with there is, when you train and go into that new field, then you're not going to go in at the salary level that you left your old field.
Right.
So there's other adjustments that have to be made. But that's one of the booming areas of career counseling, is working with people who are transitioning careers. And a lot of companies who are offering the payout packages, one of the things that they are offering for people is retraining. They will give them X amount of dollars or X amount of opportunity to take training in something else, or to go to school and do something, learn to do something else.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, Texas offers money if, like, you want to get trained, you're doing a transition and like your skills are outdated.
Yeah.
Especially when there was a change, like even with the printing industry, from film, it went to digital. Like, a lot of people were kind of stuck in this analog kind of age, and Texas would offer money for people to get trained. And that was helpful to me. And so when people were out of work, they would just sign up at the workforce and get money to get all kinds of different training. And usually they were the older generation.
Right. So thank you all for jumping in on this discussion. I just think it's important that we talk about more than just giving people assessments and finding out their interests and their strengths, and and that we realize that there are other levels of this that we're going to have to be aware of and prepared to address as people come in for help. And you know, they don't always come in because of a job search, but as we're working with them, we may find that that a job search is part of what's needed. So I want us to take a little bit of time and here's what I'm going to do. I am going to ask you, I'm going to split you up into group rooms. I'm going to ask a couple of groups to go to the career1stop.org and a couple of groups to go to the OOH website. And what I want you to, I'm sorry, I thought I turned that off. That's annoying. What I want you to be, if you're going to the Career One Stop site, what I want you to do is to go to the career profiles and the occupation profiles. And then I want you to put in mental health counselor. And then you'll select a state. But I think what I'm going to do is put like 3 of you in each room. And what I would like for you to do is look at everybody's state. And compare from state to state what you see as what are the wages? How do the wages differ from state to state for mental health counselors? What is the projected need in each of your states, and how does that differ from state to state? How about education and training? How does that differ from state to state? Like in Indiana, if you're a social worker, you can work in a hospital without your master's degree. You just, if you've got an undergrad in social work, you can do case management. Now you're not going to get paid a lot to do it, but you can do it. You don't have to have a master's degree. But there are other areas where you have to have a master's degree or higher to work. So that's what I want you to do, and let's start making some comparisons here. On the Occupational Outlook website, the OOH website, do the same thing. Pick a category. See what it says about this one. This one always interests me. Nuclear medicine technologists. You only have to have an associate's degree, and the salary is close to $80,000 a year. That some of these just really are interesting to me. I'm trying to find where to tell you. Go to the search and put in mental health counselors, and it will take you down through that. But again, if you're on this website, look at what it says about the job. Look at what the median pay is, and let's just take a few minutes and go search those sites out. If there are other areas that you want to search while you're in there, I just want you to spend some time on these websites, and then come back and let's talk about them, because I want you to be able to navigate them. And this ties into one of your assignments for this week. So I'm hoping this will give you a little bit of a leg up on your assignments. So let's see, I am going to stop the screen share. I'm going to put you guys in breakout rooms, and we'll do 4 breakout rooms, and that way there'll be one breakout room will only have a couple people in it. The rest will have 3 in it. That's not right. Here we go. If you are in breakout room, if you're in breakout room 1, search the go to the if you're in breakout room 1, go to the NCDA internet site. That's ncda.org. If you are in breakout room 2, go to the OOH website. And I'm going to throw another one in here. If you are in breakout room 3, I want you to go to the ONET interest profiler, and that website is mynextmove.org. Now, let me help you all get set up, because that's a lot of information. So let me get you divided, broken up into your breakout rooms, and then I will, I'll be sure everybody has the information that they need. Okay. Okay, so room 1 is going to be Allie, Carol, Lydia, and Sally. And you guys are going to go to the
NCDA, I think.
NCDA, yes. Room 2 is going to be Angel, Anthony, Janet, and Jill. You guys are going to go to the OOH. Jessica, Lindsay, and Vanessa, you guys are going to go to the profiler room, which is what you're going to find there is an assessment, and it won't take very long for you to do this. So all 3 of you take the assessment and see what it says about you. Okay. I'll check in with everybody's room to make sure that you've got the information that you need and you're on target. But Let's just do some exploring here. There we go. Got everybody in the rooms.
We're
First
the
one's
only ones
back.
back.
You're back.
I didn't realize you had to leave. I thought it was going to push me back, and I was just sitting there by myself.
Oh. All right. I think we got everybody back. All right. So tell me what you discovered at your websites. You guys that were in room 1, what did you discover at your website?
Wait, was that us or who was
Yeah,
one?
sorry, Allie and Carol and Lydia and Sally. What did you discover at your website?
Carol, can you speak to the numbers on your website? I felt like your website was the best, I think.
Sure. So we looked at, in California, we put in marriage and family therapists because it's much more prominent, at least at this juncture, unlike the rest of the country that's LPC. But we looked at the rate of growth between California and the United States. It was 24% projected from, let's see, 2016 to 2026. We looked at the median salary and the 90th percentile and 75th percentile. We looked at the level of education required in California. It's typically over 50% hold a master's degree. And you need a license. I mean, I don't know that there are any huge ahas. I think, I can't remember, Lydia, if you typed in your state to see how the numbers differed, but we had 3 of us from California out of the 4.
Okay. Okay.
I did look at Michigan, but it actually didn't have any information for Michigan. It just showed NA, and it showed the United States percentages and numbers, but not anything for Michigan.
For Michigan specifically?
Yeah.
Okay. No. Okay. So you weren't really able to compare between Michigan and
No,
California.
we couldn't compare between states. No.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else of that you guys have to add? Okay, room 2 was Angel and Anthony and Janet and Jill. And you guys were on the OOH site? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So what were you able to discover? I know that wasn't a long time to be able to look, but what were you able to discover?
That it would be lucrative to move to Alaska or Utah.
There you go.
I mean, just saying.
Yeah. Did you see quite a range in salary among the states, or?
It was a bit surprising.
Yeah.
Honestly, Vermont seemed to, it wasn't, I don't know if it's necessarily the salary, but Vermont seemed to have a higher, I think anyway, if I'm right, account of clinicians or substance abuse workers, which is shocking. New York doesn't pay as much as other places. Shocking. So I'll be panhandling on the side. Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Angel's lucky. She's living in the right state. They got paid the most.
Really?
Supposedly, but I don't know anybody who makes that much.
But interestingly enough, it wasn't like, you know, 10,000 to 20,000 more. It was, I think, I don't know what range we saw per year.
Mhm.
It was around 10, wasn't it? Between the high and the low. It wasn't a huge amount
I
of
think it
differences
might have
between
been
the
closer
state.
to 20 actually.
Was it?
Oregon was
Yeah.
67, and I
Like
saw
a-
other states that were like 48.
Yeah.
Mm. Mhm.
In
Some
the
were-
in the annual wages?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, 44,000 I thought was the lowest that I saw was a median. And then the other states that paid higher, some of them were 67,000.
Yeah.
Is that
And I-
deceiving though? The median,
How
when it comes to that, could that be deceiving? Because that could be like a very small percentage of individuals that kind of tip that scale, right? Or I don't
Mhm.
know.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think both of the sites that you guys were looking at don't include psychologists and psychiatrists in that accounting. So from that standpoint, it makes it a little bit more accurate or more realistic in terms of the disciplines that are included. But yeah, I think Anthony, that's another good point. That those are things that we want to, as we're searching these things, and looking at these numbers. Those are questions that we want to be asking and things that we want to be aware of. How many people are at this $32,000 level, and how many people are at that $72,000 level. I think 72 or 78 was the highest amount that I saw for any of the states. So good question. Anything else from the four of you guys? Okay, Jessica, Lindsay, and Vanessa, you took one of the assessments.
Yeah, I think
You
we had the
discovered.
funnest part because we got to take like a BuzzFeed quiz. No, it wasn't. It was really had a lot of different questions, but trying to figure out like what career path and what your gifts are. I want to say I snapped a picture so I'd remember the zones. It categorized you as either realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, or conventional. And then it had different jobs within each of those, I guess, skill sets that you might be best suited for. And then within the careers, you had to say, how much training do I want to do? So would it be job zone 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5?
Yeah.
So we found mental health counselor came up. So it kind of gave us an overview, but I saw it didn't break it down by state, but it said like the highest was 74,000, I think. The medium was about 42, but could go down as low as 26,000.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I would highly encourage everybody to go do it. I thought it was pretty fun. Some of the questions were fun.
There's a whole list of those that you can go in and do and see which ones you think are more informative. And I think it's just fun to, like you said, I think it's interesting and fun to take those inventories and see kind of where you fall in all of them. So anybody else in that third group want to kick in here?
Yeah, like Lindsay said, I think Lindsay reviewed it pretty well, but it was pretty neat to just go through the whole assessment and find out what the lowest and the highest, categories where you fall in, and to see which jobs fall into each one. So it's pretty neat little assessment.
Good. Well, I'm aware that we're running short on time, and Carolyn has already had to skip out, so I'll need to let her know what I'm about to tell you. This assignment, I am going to give you credit for the learning activity. that you're supposed to do this week. So for participating in this, you will, I think it's learning activity too. But I'm right now off the top of my head, I'm not sure. It's a 30-point learning activity and it's a discussion board. Now, if you want to explore more and look into more, I would certainly encourage you to do that. Just have the fun of taking some time to explore it. But for right now, you have completed that assignment and I will go in and put your points in. Okay?
Thank you.
If we already did the
Professor
discussion
Adam.
board, so we not do the paper?
Did you already do it?
We could not do the paper though, for those of us who already did the discussion board.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can't give you 30 points extra credit, but I will, I'll work some extra credit in there somewhere for you, Vanessa. If you guys have already done them, there ought to be some kind of bonus in there for you. And hopefully that'll give you a little bit of breathing space this week. I thought that was something that we could do, and something that would maybe be interesting to do and give us a little bit of variety and in what we looked up, and also give you a little bit of a break. So, all right. Have a wonderful spring break next week. If you have any questions or concerns, please always feel free to shoot me an email or a text. All right.
Thank you.
Professor
All right,
Adam.
guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
Have
care.
a good night.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Rest
Good
well,
night.
everybody.
We'll be praying for your body scan and everything, and I
Thank
hope
you.
it goes well.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.